Welcome everyone. I'm Pat Mitchell. Joined me today is Brian. Sorry about that, folks. This is the truth behind the trade. Adam is joining us as well. He's taking the producer role again, and we're going to be analyzing a trade that Brian took. And I think it's really good. I've went over it. There's some really good points. And we're going to first introduce Brian and get to know him a little bit here before we get into the truth behind the trade. So how's it going, Brian? Welcome, bud.
Good, thanks. Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So thanks for joining us like first thing in the morning. It's early morning here, folks, that we're doing this.
No problem.
And maybe because we know you, but the audience doesn't, give a little background. What do you do? How long have you been trading? That sort of stuff.
Okay, well, I was a truck driver by trade. I drove trucks for about 25 years. I'm 47 years old. Started trading about 2 years ago when I found Tricktrades. This is my first trading service I've ever been in.
Nice.
And took a break from trucking about 4 months ago. I moved some money around and I was paid pretty well over those 25 years. So I had some money saved up to pay my bills. And been pursuing trading full time now for the last 4 months or so because my bills are taken care of, so I can focus just solely on learning how to trade, and hopefully this is going to be the new career for me.
Nice. So right off the hop with that. Now I know that because that's kind of how I did it as well. I had the safety net of Chrissy. Chrissy was working. And it wasn't like any type of a good paying job or anything that she was working. She was working for a water company. And I know for myself personally, there was a shitload of pressure on my shoulders because obviously I don't want to let her down. I know there's not enough money coming in. So how do you deal with the pressure? Do you find that you're under pressure at all? Like, do you feel that weight?
I definitely do. I want to get consistent and have an income from trading before my savings runs out. So that does put a lot of pressure. Yes.
Okay. So, and you've kept up on all your licensing and everything else like that though
Yes.
Okay. So that's a good thing. And I think that that's something to think about as well. If, like, let's talk worst case scenario, right? And sometimes I do this exercise with myself. If something is like, it's just like that looming danger overhead, and it's something on my mind and something needs to be taken care of, or I'm waiting for something to unfold, right? Because it's hard to trust that everything just will work out, right? Like I've said before, we need that touch of delusion, but a touch of delusion doesn't take away all the stresses of life, right? Or at least it shouldn't. If it does, there's probably too much delusion, right? So that's something to think about, that there is always that safety net. A guy can go back to that. It's not what a guy wants, and nor am I saying that that's going to happen. I'm just simply saying that can kind of take some of that weight subconsciously off of your shoulders. Nobody wants that outcome, but sometimes things happen. So with that said, how do you find that you're progressing? You've been trading for about what, a year you said, sorry?
2 years.
Okay, so 2 years. And what do you find is your biggest struggle, your biggest hurdle?
I'm at that point where I'll do really good for several days in a row, green trades, and then I'll hit that one where I'm just off and something's, I'm not 100% and I'll get a big loss and it'll kind of wipe those gains out. So I'm kind of stagnant, I guess you could say. I'm not blowing the account, but it's not growing as much as I'd like.
Okay, I don't think that's so. A lot of that is just like, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, but the audience hasn't heard it. Like, it's such a natural progression of a trader. And I talked about this in last night's Momentum live Q&A. And there's so many mistakes that we can make as a trader, right? Like, they're almost countless. And it has to do with each individual trade setup. So let's say a trade is basing. We have a double bottom or a triple bottom right at support. Very basic type of trade, right? And we execute that trade and it comes down, it confirms, right? We size into it. We're averaging into this trade. It's confirming, it's proving that it's strong. And then it does it again. It's definitely confirming strength. And then it washes out. So sometimes on that washout, it breaks that support, right? We get freaked out because of that single red candle, where actually, in fact, it's only broken that level by a few pennies. We shouldn't be stopping out, but yet we do. So that's just one mistake, right? So that one mistake needs to happen, I would say 50 times. And 50 times of that one single trade setup, that one single mistake, that's a long time, right? Like you're not going to take 50 of those exact trades in a year. You see what I'm kind of getting at? So that kind of carries on. Maybe you take that exact trade and make that same mistake 20 times a year. So that's 2 years of making that same mistake and then finally catching it and being like, oh shit, okay, I need to make adjustments. Now, that might be an extreme example and extreme numbers, but it puts it into perspective that that's why this takes as long as it does. Because to make that adjustment it's a lot of time, right? Like, and that's just one mistake, not the actual literal probably 20 or 30 mistakes that we all make on any given setup. So this is why the progression of a trader takes as long as it does. And when you start looking at it that way, this is what should kick someone into high gear for, making those adjustments as soon as possible, trying to capture and catch these mistakes as soon as possible, or else it's just going to draw the process out. And this is why the process takes as long as it does. It's just one of the reasons, one of the many reasons, right?
Yep.
So you want to get to consistencies. And I always say it's like a race to consistency. And it's about, in order to get that consistency, we have to do things correctly. So what things do you find that you're doing incorrectly?
Like you said, I'll freak out over a red candle. Excuse me. Or sometimes I'll get that red candle or whichever way it's going against me.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as it comes back, I'll size down or I'll even get out completely. And
Okay.
then it works in my favor. And I'm like, well, that would have been a beautiful trade, but I got all out. That type of
Yes.
thing. That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay. So we know, and for those that don't know, we have a risk strategy in place. We have kind of two risk strategies in place. We have one that is standard risk. That is our go-to. And what that is, it's designed to keep you in the trade just long enough. Now, at first glances, it just looks like a regular stop out strategy. Like on SPY, we'll give ourselves 1 point of risk. But there's more to it than that. It's actually quite a developed risk strategy, right? So there's that. And then we also have, obviously, technical stops will override that. It's about remembering that when we're in the trade. And it's difficult to do that. It's way easier said than done. Because why? Because these candles and the way the market is designed, right? The way charts are even set up is almost like some sort of a psyop against retail traders. The red candles are bad, green candles good, and it's the speed. They'll use that speed of stopping people out at a certain breakage to freak a guy out, because it's easy to get freaked out, right? With these candles ripping around the way that they do. And at least you have one advantage, Brian, and you found Tricktrades, and we don't trade garbage stocks. Like the stocks that we trade are heavily institutionally traded. Banks, hedge funds, all the institutions. Stocks like SPY, Qs, Apple, AMD. So that's an advantage. That's a good thing, right? So we know when it breaks that level, it can't necessarily hurt us. The only way it can hurt us is if there's major catalyst, some sort of big news event, numbers come out. But even numbers, we know that numbers can't necessarily hurt us as well, right? Like these numbers are designed, negative numbers want to come down into, they'll use that to drop it into a support level. So it's all of these things that we've been through, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at. And it's a question, and it's a matter of actually using that education and not freezing in the moment, right? And I think one of the reasons why you're kind of freezing in that moment is you'll automatically think about your consistency, that road to consistency. And that weight on your shoulders from going full time before you're ready. Now, again, and that's not a bad thing. I did the same thing, right? Like if we wait until we're ready, we'll never get anything done. Never. Like people that put things off and it's like, no, I need to make sure it's perfect before I do it. Well, nothing will ever fucking happen. It'll never happen. A guy's just going to constantly spin his wheels, right? So it's not a bad thing that you've went full time, maybe before you're ready, right? At least this way you can focus 100% on your craft. So that's something that it's not good, it's not bad, and I err on the side of that. It's a good thing. And I used to take the opposite stance where it was like, you should never do it before you're ready, and you need to prove that consistency first, which is a pretty good argument, right? But sometimes if we wait for that, I mean, shit, man, we're going to wait forever. Life's going to pass us by. We're going to miss the opportunity. So I get that. But we do need to, we need to obviously get things handled. And we're going to get into your trade, right? Now that we've got to know you a little bit and we know some of the issues that you're having, we're going to go over this trade. And this is a great trade, by the way. And it's a great example. It happened on February 27th. Okay, so I'm going to open up the charts here and show Brian's trade. The entries are above, so that's his entries chart. And then below that is the actual intraday chart. So then you can see, and he has some levels and some notes there that we're going to go over. And I also have another chart. It's just one big chart that you guys can see. We can see the daily chart, and we're going to get into it. So we are ready to rock and roll here. One sec. Let me grab this. Okay, you guys can see this all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so Brian has a trade here, like I said, on February 27th on SPY. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on this trade, but let me give the perspective of what is actually going on what's going on this chart before we kind of get into your side of things. So I'm going to go to this day, and this is the day here. So that is, let me grab it, sorry guys, right here. So you can see this green line right where my cursor is circling. That's the red day. That is the previous day. This green day, this hammer candle, that's the action day in question. I have one level here, and that is, it's low of day, but the previous close is right there. And that is at 505.85. So the market opens up and it sells off straight down into that level, breaks that level by about 30 cents or so, confirms, and pushes up nicely. Okay, so that's just to give you a little bit of perspective and what's going on the day. So the market opened up, it sold off straight down into the previous close. So now I'm going to get into the entries and the other chart of Brian's. And first, Brian, I want to ask you, what was your thought process behind this? And let's start with that.
Okay, well, it was coming straight down into our previous close level that we were watching. So I wanted to enter long, of course. Uh, I wasn't planning on using as much size as I ended up using. I usually start in with about 5 contracts, and then I'll add 5, and I'll usually go up to about 15 max, which is kind of what I did in the beginning there. Um, to me, it was setting up pretty good because it was washing straight down into the level. So according to strategy, that's where I take the trade. So I was pretty confident when I was coming into this. And
Beautiful.
I know
Yep.
I could have added a little bit lower as it pushed down, but I kind of waited maybe a little too long for confirmation before I added. And then as it came back up to the level, I was getting out my size because it had already passed the level. And then when it came down again, of course, I could have added again, which I don't think I did. And then we got some numbers come out at 10 o'clock. And that's that big spike there, which I took off the majority. And I think I should have been done at that point, but it wasn't green yet. So I tried to hit it again, and then I kind of didn't manage it as well after that. Ended up with a $200 loss.
Okay. Good assessment on that. I like this trade. Now, obviously, there's a couple of tweaks. So on this here, this highlighted area right here, that's his first entries. That's into the previous close. That's a beautiful entry. We have speed, we have distance into a valid support level to go long. So he bought some calls. Do you remember how much size you started with on that?
It's 5 on the first entry, and I believe I added another 5 on that second entry.
Okay, so he's in on 10 contracts. Now, 10 contracts is the equivalent of 1,000 shares on SPY. It's a fair sized position, ladies and gentlemen. The number 10 doesn't sound big, but it is when it comes to options. So that there, I don't mind. I don't mind that entry. I think you could have held off on that size a little bit if I had to make an adjustment there. If your max size is like 15 contracts, and I think what happened there is because of the speed and the distance that we had into that previous close, we're assuming it's going to just rip it and send it right off that level. And obviously, sometimes that doesn't work out, as we can see. But it only dipped down about 30 cents. 30 cents on a $500 stock is nothing. So do you remember in this trade, like, were you feeling stressed out that it broke this level at all?
I think I was a little bit, yeah.
Okay. And that's pretty normal if we're in with a little bit more size than we should be
Exactly.
taking,
I was
right?
already in 10, so yes.
Okay, so next up is his entry here. Now, I don't mind this entry. I think the entry itself is all right. If I had to make an adjustment and I would have to be getting super picky on this, it would be in the previous candle. As it's coming down, confirming into lows. We want to take that and size into that. Now, sometimes that's okay. Our timing might be off. He didn't chase it, so I don't have a problem with this. So that's a beautiful ad. Your entry, your initial entry, and then your ad, I have absolutely nothing to say of it. It's absolutely beautiful. Don't worry about continuing to add on these washes. I know sometimes we do, but it only broke that level by 30 cents. So it's like, to start correcting your average over 30 cents, we shouldn't be doing, right? We should let it wash out more and then correct that average, or else you're just kind of like, it's like shooting a gun, right? And you're just blasting rounds off instead of saving those few rounds for when you actually need it. So I have no problem with that. Now I want to highlight in here. So this is where this trade starts falling apart a little bit. This is where I would start making these adjustments. So when we push up, I have absolutely no problems because there's a level there. That previous close is there, ladies and gentlemen. So right in here, I'm just going to highlight a box. And that box is the previous close. I'm actually going to do this again, so then we can get a better idea of a level. So, oops, sorry guys, one sec. Okay. So as we open up, we dip into that level. He enters, it falls below. That's okay. It confirms strength. He adds, he starts getting out on that push back up into resistance. So this was support. When support breaks, it becomes resistance. That's technical analysis 101. So when we add, it's to correct that average. And then on that push up into that resistance, we need to size down. We need to pay ourselves, okay? Because we may not get a chance to do it again. So he did. It was a little late. You can see here with this entry, it's a tad late. And instead of paying himself on that push up, now I know it doesn't seem like much, but if you take a look on the option side, if you would have hit it coming straight into that level with no hesitation, you would be out almost right back at where you started. And with your average, you would be green on that push or very close, okay? So because of the hesitation, it knocks that premium down, the price of the option, that's all that means, down a little bit. So you're not getting the best fill, okay? You're not getting the best exit on this. So that's just the first one. It's not that big of a deal though, Brian. I don't mind that first one. So don't think too much about that, okay? That's just where I would make a little bit of an adjustment. Now, the issue I have are with these two. So every time we enter and we exit, it costs us money in these trades, right? And it can range. And every time you go in, every time you go out, if you are peeling off, 2 contracts, it's going to cost you $2. It's $1 a contract, okay, roughly. So these bang, bang, you're kind of throwing money away on that. And this is just a little adjustment that I would make. If you are going to take off 5, then take 5 off. Don't go 2, then 1, then, 3. Or 2, sorry, my math. So start having more of a plan on the exit. Know as it's coming down, even before you enter, once it confirms and I get my size in, I'm going to peel off half. So if I have 10, I'm going to take off 5. Or if I've got 10 or 15, I'm going to take off, 10, 11. Whatever it is, whatever your plan is, make that commitment in your mind first. So there's that. So far, the trade on this, it's not bad at all. I really don't have much to say. This first part here, pretty good. Like I said, it falls apart a little bit in this area. Little bit too much. And you're starting to sell because you're seeing red candles. Now, these red candles are normal and they're natural. If anything, we should be taking an add into these lows for potential confirmation. Okay? But again, I don't have much to say on this. It's pretty decent. So as it's coming up, numbers are about to come out and you pay yourself back into that level. Remember, guys, there is a level here. And you can see his exit is right there. That's beautiful, Brian. Fucking beautiful, dude. I love that. I love that. Oh, no, sorry. I'm all fucked up. You entered there. Maybe not so beautiful. So you're starting to chase a little bit here.
Right.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So you're starting to chase a little bit here on that push up where you should be paying yourself your entering. Right? Yep. You're looking for the squeeze up. Now, sometimes that's going to be acceptable, and I don't mind that. But when we are working with a small account and we are under the gun to gain that consistency, you have less liberties. There's certain things that we must do at all times. Now, are we going to do them all the time? Probably not. But we have to do our absolute best. So right now, you're starting to chase. It just happened to work out. Numbers came out, it pushed. You got a pretty decent sell on this. Not a top tick, but we're not going for perfection. Nothing wrong with that. So other than this, little bit of a chase, okay, you're looking for the squeeze up. I'm still scoring this trade like 7.5, 8 out of 10. It's still a fine trade. You're starting to chase, but if you didn't chase after that, I would probably score this overall pretty good. And the reason why you're starting to chase here is you're noticing that you're still not green on the trade.
Correct.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be green on that trade. Where the mistake, the initial mistake is made, is taking off too much size here. You're not giving this chart enough time to breathe and do what it needs to do, okay? So that's where the initial mistake is made. And I know what I said earlier, and I'm saying this for a reason, is originally this trade overall, so far, isn't that bad. I have no problems with it. It's this here. This is where I know that it's affecting you. If something is affecting you, whether big or small, we have to make adjustments because you'll continue to make that mistake. Like I was talking about at the beginning of this. This one mistake, do you find that you make it quite often?
I wouldn't say quite often, but it's happened several times like that. Yep, it's the exact
Okay.
thing.
Okay, so it probably falls into the category of like, instead of 50 times it happening, it probably happens 20 times a year, something like that, right?
Yep.
It's still enough that it's going to take time to make that adjustment. So we're catching it now. We can't be chasing that up just to make extra money. Sometimes we need to understand that these things will reset and we'll have another proper low risk opportunity. Okay? So now the trade really falls apart, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we chase this thing like a motherfucker. You're chasing so up high here that you just took it off here, right? That exit there is a beautiful exit. And in fact, if we were to take this full trade from the beginning of the day right to here, I'm scoring this an 8 out of 10. That's a beautiful trade, man. You did well. A little bit of, I got to give you a little bit of a cuff in the back of the head for that little bit of a chase. But overall, we make mistakes in trades. We're not looking for perfection. We don't need perfection. We just need to do well enough. We need to trade well. And up until this point, beautiful, fantastic trade. Adjustments need to be made, but there's not much there. This is where it's fallen apart in a big, bad way. And we cannot be doing that, because what you're doing is you're falling for that very traditional, institutional trap. They're getting that dumb money, the retail trader, to chase. So how do we fix this? How can you fix this? And then I'll give you, let's see what you have to say on this.
I think it was just greed. Like you said, the trade was going really well. I wasn't green on it, but it wasn't bad. I was probably like negative $40 maybe, if
Mm-hmm.
that I would have been fine with that. But no, I got greedy that day, and I thought, well, it's gonna squeeze here, so I can turn it back green. And then of
Yeah.
course it kind of fell apart, like you said. So
Okay. So your assessment is correct. I want to go back into that chart just one more time because I really want to stress this. Remember, that's your initial. That is where and why you are still red on this trade. Okay? You're taking off too much size. Now, keep in mind, sometimes that's going to work to your advantage and sometimes it isn't. But this action down below here gave you no indication. And I made the, oops, shoot. One sec, sorry guys. So this part here, and I made the low of that box there for a reason. The low of that box is a level, isn't it? It gave you no indication to be freaking out. Where you're getting out too much size, this is where we need to take that opposite stance. And you are committed in this trade. It's only broken the previous close by 30 cents. It's playing with it. There's volume coming in. It's trying to confirm. Sometimes levels and technicals can work against us because we see that definitive level on the chart. And that becomes gospel in our minds. And it doesn't need to hold that perfectly. We have to give these things time. But before I get too carried away here, I want to point that out. Remember, this right there, those extra, not that first sell, I should actually correct myself, those, it's too much. It's too much. You're taking too much off there, okay? Because if you didn't, and you only took that one sell, and you were slightly red on that trade, by the time you got here on that push, you are 100% green. Okay? 100% green. Now, would it be enough of a green trade for you not to chase? I don't know that. And that's a question that we would need more trades and a bigger sample size, a bigger pool size to understand. So that's what you need to do now for me. So moving forward, the next time you make this exact mistake, not something similar, it needs to be exact. Start taking a look at those entries and it's like, did I take off too much? No, I corrected that. That's okay. Did I still want to chase? All these little adjustments, they're ridiculous because it's like, there's so many adjustments we do need to make in these trades. But that's the main thing I have to say. That chasing is going to fucking destroy you. We know that. We know that, right?
Yep.
We see traders chase all the time. And again, it boils down to how these charts are designed. Of course we want to chase that. If you think for a second that I don't want to chase with huge size on a push up, fucking rights I do, but I stop myself, right? Those candles are green, they're coming up. I want to chase that. I want to make more money. Greed isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know people, and even I do it, where I make it give it such a negative context. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of being human. And we're never going to be able to curb that or control that 100%. There's no way. It's in us, man. It's in us. That's like trying to change your hair color with your mind, right? We can't just manifest things into fucking reality because we fucking want to, right?
Right.
So it's these types of things that we need to accept, but we just can't give into it. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that that's still easier said than done. I think when it comes to this, if I have to assess this trade and what your actual issue is, the actual issue isn't anything that I said before about the trade. It always boils down to what's going on in here. And I think what we need more of a way to handle the weight being on our shoulders of going full time before we're ready. And I think that's what it is. I think that's what it boils down to. If you have a year worth of bills, right? At the beginning of that year, right, when you first went full time, you were probably maybe not crushing, but you were crushing, right?
I was. I had my best month ever. My first month full time was my best month ever, yes.
And the reason for that is you were probably happier than a pig in shit, weren't you?
Yes.
So you have a very positive mindset and a positive mind at the beginning. You're like, hell yeah, going full time, right?
Yep.
We need to remember that feeling. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, dude. The only thing that's changed is that perception of time and the relationship between time and money. The more time goes by, the more money that is getting drained out of my bank account.
Yep.
Just from paying bills.
Yep.
You signed up for that, right? Like that's something that you already made an agreement with yourself on. And this is where we need to get our shit together. And we need to understand we've already signed up for this. We already wanted to fucking do this. We agreed to it. We were excited about it. Be excited. You're chasing a fucking dream that 95% of people on the planet, they fucking envy you, man. Do you know how many people don't go after dreams? My dad, I love him. He's my dad. But I can tell over the years he's become broken. And it's not easy to talk about, especially in front of people, but it's the truth. And the reason for that is every single time he had a dream or he wanted to go after something, he didn't pull the trigger. He didn't fucking do it. There's a piece of land that is in the south side of Edmonton, up in Canada, that is all fully developed now. And he had an opportunity to buy that land. This was, I believe it was a half section of land, or it might have even been a full section of land, but at least a half section of land, okay? So we're talking 160 acres times 2. Years later, that's where the south side of Edmonton is now. That was sold for $1 million an acre. The guy that bought it. My dad was going to buy it. He didn't buy it. And the cost on this is huge. So you should be proud of yourself. You're that guy. You're the guy that's going after it, right? You know, like, and we get so wrapped up in what if we don't succeed? What if we fail? Don't allow it to happen. What's the worst that's going to happen, Brian? You gotta go now to a more of a part-time trader. Worst case scenario, you can go back to driving truck, right?
Yep.
You can pick up a gig on the weekends for maybe a little bit of extra cash flow, right? We don't want to. It's not stuff we want to do. But even if you find that it takes even that much stress and weight off your shoulders, that in your mind is like that. It's huge. So I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying, you know, maybe it's something as time is getting closer, you can do that, right? You've done it before. It's not that big of a deal. But the biggest takeaway is you're that guy. You're the guy that's actually going after their fucking goals and their dreams. So many people will look at that and they'll snicker behind your fucking back and, oh, look at him and what he's doing. You're like, listen here, motherfucker, you're sitting on the couch. You haven't done a goddamn thing with your life ever. You've never taken a gamble on yourself. You don't believe in yourself. I do. Go fuck yourself, right? And that's a powerful position to be in. It's a position that the majority of people envy. They just do, right? So that's fucking awesome. That right there, you're not going to die a broken man. Not like a lot of fucking people out there. And people that I love and respect. They're going to die broken. There's nothing I can do about that, right? You won't. You won't. You went after shit. You got after it. So that alone, remember that feeling, because that's the feeling, and that's what was going on inside your mind at the beginning of this on month 1. You were like, fuck yeah, man, right? Get that feeling back. And it's like the weight on your shoulders, because now you're months into it, you signed up for it. You signed up for it. You agreed to this. So don't start getting fucking scared now. You're in it. Just be in it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And that's what this trade actually boils down. That's why you're chasing. That's why you're taking off too much size. That's what's going on. That's the root cause. People don't want to look at that shit because that's the hard stuff, right? It's like, maybe I am scared, right? And they don't want to admit that. No man wants to admit they're scared. They just don't. But that's what's going on. Just remember the feeling at the beginning of that. You got into this for a reason. You agreed to it. You wrote a contract with yourself. I'm going to give myself 1 year. I have 1 year of bills paid. I'm good. So fucking be good, right? And these are the types of like self-speeches that we need to give ourselves. It's a very similar speech that I gave to myself. I blew up 2 accounts at the beginning, and I've told this 1,000 times. On my 3rd account, I had a $5,000 account. That's what I had left, right? And I whittled it down to about halfway. It was like 2,600 and change or some shit. And I'm like, holy fuck, I can't be doing this again. Like, I got no more money. I'm fucked. So I got to get my shit together. Start doing what I know how to do. Because I know how to do this. Just like I know you do, Brian. I know you do. I've seen you trade. The trades you've taken, they're fucking perfect. Even this one, up to that point, is a beautiful trade. We got to catch ourselves. We got to catch ourselves from making those mistakes, because those mistakes are mistakes out of fucking fear. You signed up for this. Where's the fear coming from? Why? And if there's a way to take some of that fear away, even on the weekends, maybe 1 day a week, then do it. Fuck it. There's no shame in it, right? Like, you got to do what you got to do. And it's like, again, I can't stress the how powerful of a position it is to be in, where you are one of the ones on the planet that is not sitting on the couch. You're making the change. You're getting sick and tired of fucking doing what you've been doing for your entire life. You don't want to do it anymore. And you're making that change. That's something that's so fucking admirable that people, they probably fucking hate you for it, man. Because they see their failures and they see how much of a coward they are. That's what it is. And that's why people are miserable, right? Like, that's what it boils down to. You're not broken. The rest of them are. So you signed up for it. You agreed to it. So get out there and fucking do it. That's it. That's what it boils down to. And yes, of course, you still need to make all the fucking adjustments on the charts and with your trading. That doesn't get wiped out because I'm just going to remember how I was on the first month. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but we know that that's not going to happen. But that's the root cause. That's where it all starts, right?
Yep, you're exactly right. It takes a lot of self-work, discipline. I've seen that. When I first started, I thought this was going to be easy. I thought, I'll get it in 6 months while I'm still working a job. I thought, I'm good. I'm a fast learner. No, it takes a lot of self-work, a lot of
and it's not the technicals. Exactly. It's not the technicals. It's not understanding price action. It has nothing to do with that. And that's why I always laugh when it's like you see people that's all they do. That's all they talk about. They'll never talk about working on themselves. They'll never talk about trying to develop their mind, trying to get emotional control while they're in front of the charts. That's the only thing that matters, because where were your mistakes made? Your mistakes were made due to emotion and fear. That's it. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, I think moving forward, Brian, because like I've said before, I know how you trade, right? And I know you can get back there. And I know this again, and this is what gets me too. This, for the viewers out there that are very new to trading, you have to understand, this is one trade. It's a small sample size. Okay. So before you start typing in what Brian should do, I know how Brian trades, right? This is one trade. It's a very small sample size. This is just one of many things that Brian needs to make adjustments on. It's not because he doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. This is the reality of trading. For the people watching this that make comments like that, you don't understand what the truth is because you've been lied to this entire time by all of these pieces of shit out there. That's what's going on. Like, this is the reality of trading. This is why things take as long as they do. It's because of all of this stuff. It's all up here. We're all a mess, man. Like, each and every one of us, we got so much shit floating around our heads, so many stresses, so many things from our childhood. We got mommy and daddy issues. We got fucking, everyone's got problems. And that's why everybody's situation is a little bit different, right? Like, so it's like that's the thing. And it's, as long as we catch ourselves, we know how and what to do, you're going to be good, Brian. There's not a doubt in my mind. You're going to make it to the other side. You just will. You know, everybody thinks you're so far away. You're like that far away from getting there. You're this close, man. You're that fucking close. You really are. I know you are. Those little adjustments, I know that you can make. And that's it. You can turn red trades green on a dime. I know you can. I've seen you do it. So do it. Right? Just make those right decisions while you're in that trade. And I know that that's easier said than done. But I know you can do it.
Yeah.
Right? You know? So it's like, I mean, that's what I got. I think that trade was a great example of how things can snowball, how things can fall apart, because it was a beautifully managed trade at the beginning. You know, a couple mistakes here and there and could have been better, blah, blah, blah. But then it really unraveled. And it's unraveling because of that first mistake. There's always, just like trend formation. Trend formation is a setup that we take. A lot of people follow trend, whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. Trend formation is a way of recognizing the exact moment, the exact second that trend actually forms. So instead of waiting for it to fully form and missing all of those potential gains, you can capture it right at the beginning, right? It's the same thing with this. It's just at that moment, the fuck up moment, when everything's about to snowball. It's about catching that, capturing that, catching yourself doing it before you do it. That's the secret. And that's the hardest part. But I have no doubt that you will. So I would like to do at some point, Brian, I think we could do a follow-up one of these, because I'd like to see where you are in a couple of months. Maybe you're getting a little closer to money running out. Maybe you've got that consistency now. Maybe we'll see, right? And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this. It's like, let's just wait and see what happens, man.
Sounds
you know,
good.
and make the adjustments along the way. Because I know you're not, I know you. There's no way that you would give up after putting in this much time. So it's not like it's almost like a fake or a bullshit lie that we tell ourselves. Well, I'm going to give myself a year and that's it. And then it's got to happen. We all do it.
Yeah.
It's like, I said the same shit. Well, I'm here now and I should have given up a long time ago, right? Like at the beginning, it's like I should have given up 1,000 fucking times, right? It's just a matter of whether a person does or not. Right. Like the amount of progress that you've shown over the last little bit is huge. And it's about recognizing that progress too, because it's very easy to miss that. So great job on the trade though, until it started snowballing. So let's catch ourselves, and I think you're good.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Pat.
So have you got any other questions? Well, you got me here.
Oh, I think that's pretty much sums it up. Like you said, I got to just work on myself and tell myself I've got it.
Yeah.
Come this far, I'm not giving up. No way.
No fucking way, man. No way.
Just work on those little adjustments. And like I said, that's not a typical trade of mine. That's just one that I happened to screen share, and I thought, well, this would be a good one to go over so people can kind of see. So
exactly, and that's what I'm trying to stress with that. It's like Brian doesn't chase all the time. He doesn't do that all the time. So fucking relax, right? This is the truth behind a trade, and that's what we're doing. So thanks for joining us, Brian. I'm sure everyone that's watching this can thank Brian in the comments. You know, these people are putting themselves out there. This isn't easy to do, to put yourself out there for the people to, attack, right? And have their little critiques and everything else. And so make sure to thank Brian. And I'm going to wrap this one up. So make sure to apply, whether you are a member or a non-member. There is going to be a link below where you can apply to be a part of the Truth Behind the Trade. And thanks for Adam for running the podcast here. And thanks, of course, to Brian for putting himself out there. And thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Adios.